parents were.
Don't you mean, can I remember if their parents were members of the fellowship?
Yes, that's exactly what he means, in a roundabout way.
Aye, well, I can easily check that up and let you know.
Oh, that's excellent.
Excuse me, I just better see who that is.
You know, Ian, I can't help asking myself if all those brighter children who received scholarships were like you.
You mean mutants?
Yes. And are they all holding down important jobs, like you?
Curtis, are you saying that there is a conspiracy to take over the country?
I don't know. I just don't know.
It's odd.
What is, John?
There are 2 of Gulliver's men at the door.
Huh?
They want us to accompany them to the Home Office.
But who says they're Gulliver's men? Can you be sure? I mean, have you had them checked?
Well, their papers are all in order. But they want you to bring your passport with you.
My passport? What the hell for?
But apparently there have been formal complaints laid against us.
What? By who?
By a certain member of Parliament. By you, Ian.
It is my duty to inform you, Professor Lark, that as a result of formal complaints laid against you, Her Majesty's government regrets that it has no alternative but to invite you to leave the country within 72 hours.
What?
I must ask you to surrender your passport. It will, of course, be returned to you at your point of departure when you finally leave the country.
I must protest, sir. I protest in the strongest possible terms.
You are in no position to protest, Mr. Cornelius.
Oh.
Your own activities appear to have brought you perilously close to breaking the Official Secrets Act as it is.
Official Secrets Act?
Not to mention your own code of medical practice. Or do you call it medical ethics these days?
Ethics? What on earth are you talking about, man?
In your particular case, Mr. Cornelius, I would have thought it unethical in the extreme for a brain surgeon to publicize the name of a patient in the national press, especially when that patient is a senior government official holding a politically sensitive appointment.
You can't mean Ian Sanderson.
I mean Brigadier Sherman, sir.
Who?
Oh, you remember, John, that gold-braided blimp who came blundering into Gulliver's office?
Oh, him. Well, in that case, sir, I can state without fear of contradiction that Brigadier Sherman is not, repeat, not, one of my patients and never has been.
That only compounds the situation as far as I can see.
But I don't even know the man. Only laid eyes on him once in my life.
Oh, forget it, John. Forget it. They've got the drop on us.
Your passport, Professor Lark, if you please.
All right, there. Take it.
Thank you. Here's your receipt.
This is preposterous. I warn you, sir. I intend to take this matter to the highest possible authority.
I assure you, Mr. Cornelius, this matter has already been to the highest possible authority.
We've been well and truly set up, John. We've just got to grim and bear it.
I don't know whether you gentlemen were hoping to perpetrate some sort of political hoax, but I'm bound to advise you that the allegations you've made against Mr. Ian Sanderson are so vicious as to invite legal action on the most stringent terms. Were they not so outrageous, so impossible as to read like something, like...
Science fiction.
Precisely.
Not so long ago, they were saying the same thing about getting a man to the moon.
I'll get Major Manson to see you out.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Manson, perhaps you'll be good enough to escort these gentlemen safely out of the building.
Certainly, sir. This way, gentlemen.
Thank you.
72 hours, Professor, that's all. And please be so kind as to advise us of your time and place of departure.
Pompous idiot.
Cool it, John. You'll burst a blood vessel.
Well, I ask you.
This way. Colonel Gulliver would like a few words with you.
Good. I've got a few choice words I'd like to say to him.
Copy. Strong and black.
There you are.
Thank you.
Cornelius? Same for me, if you please.
Sugar?
Please.
Yes, I'm sorry about all that.
So you damn well should be. Thanks.
Well, what else can I do? Once Ian Sanderson's complaint came in, the fat was in the fire.
I find it a little surprising, to say the least. This morning I felt sure he was on our side.
I think he may well be. He phoned as soon as you'd been picked up. I don't know where he got my name from.
From us. He almost certainly heard John say it was your men at the door.
Anyway, he told me he hadn't laid a complaint against either of you. He suggested the whole thing was either a mistake or at least a misunderstanding.
Well, we still can't afford to take Ian for granted, John. He may want to be on our side, but he's still a mutant.
You think he might have been under orders to make that complaint?
Almost certainly. The interesting part is that he seems to have pieced it all together when we were picked up and reacted accordingly.
Just as you hoped he would.
Well, at least it's a hopeful sign.
Yes. Now, what about this ridiculous newspaper story, Colonel? That really has put the cat among the pigeons.
Yes, I'm sorry about that, too.
I'll be lucky if I'm not hauled up before the BMA for that little nonsense.
And what about me, being booted out of the country like an enemy alien?
Well, that was something I hadn't foreseen, I must admit.
Do I understand you correctly, Colonel?
I should think so, Professor. You're nobody's fool.
It was you who gave that story to the press?
Yes.
But why?
Quite simply because I happen to believe your story 100%. I also believe that the two men who killed Flora were almost certainly mutants acting under orders.
Under whose orders?
That's the point, isn't it, Professor? But before I could come to grips with that, I had to deal with another problem much closer to home.
Brigadier Sherman?
Yes. Sherman is the head of this department, and my immediate superior.
And a mutant.
Undeniably. And quite possibly acting under orders, even here, in this building. If this investigation was to get anywhere, I had to get rid of the Brigadier.
I don't see how leaking the story to the press can help.
Well, it brings the investigation out into the open, Curtis, into what is called public domain.
More than that, it pinpoints Sherman as the key figure in what could be a very embarrassing front-page story.
And how have your lords and masters reacted so far to this devious scheme of yours?
Brigadier Sherman, even now, is en route for the south of France for a period of indefinite leave pending a full investigation. And I'm in charge of that investigation.
Congratulations.
And I am to be deported. More congratulations.
Relax, Professor. I've already made application for that order to be rescinded.
Do I get my passport back?
Not until I've completed my inquiries. I'm afraid I just can't allow you to leave the country.
And to think Britain used to be called the cradle of democracy.
That was Greece, dear boy.
Glad to get out of that place. It was beginning to feel like Sing Sing at one stage.
I've never been there, but I think I know the feeling. Oh, there's a newsstand over the road.
You want to read about what they said about Sherman, huh?
No, I want to make sure they've kept my name out of it. Otherwise, we'll be up to our ears in reporters for the next few days. I won't be a minute.
Okay. John, look out! John! John, are you all right?
Oh, it's my arm.
Is it broken?
No, I don't think so. But, that damn driver could have killed me.
Oh, well, that was almost certainly his intention.
Oh, you serious, dear boy?
You bet I'm serious. Me in America and you in the hospital, or worse? No doubt about it, John. Somebody's marked our card.
With a vengeance. Come in.
Morning, John.
Good morning, Curtis.
How's the arm?
Oh, it's as well as can be expected, if I might coin a phrase.
Well, maybe this will cheer you up, huh?
Oh.
Look, there. 4-minute egg, I remembered.
Well,
Coffee, orange juice, toast, and marmalade, a lot.
Just like Mother used to make.
Shall I feed you?
Oh, no, thanks. I think I can cope here. What have you got there?
Oh, this?
Mm-hmm.
It's from Saunderson. He must have pushed it through the letterbox first thing this morning. It's a list of all those he can remember as having been educated by the trust. It's an interesting little collection of names. Plus details of parentage, of course. All very comprehensive. Here, see for yourself.
Colonel Gulliver should read this. He may be able to track these people down.
Yes, and find out what they're doing now. I was checking Hugh's observations against these facts that Saunderson has given us.
And what did you find?
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's as though I had a key in my hand and couldn't find a lock to fit it.
I wonder if I've got the answer.
What's that?
I couldn't sleep much last night. This wretched arm kept me awake. And the strange thing was, I couldn't get Flora's mother out of my mind.
Flora's mother? But why? Huh?
Well, according to Flora, her mother was murdered by Molly Kyle because she had begotten Flora in sin, as she put it.
Yeah, with the young Ian Sanderson.
Yeah. Well, now, why would Molly Kyle suddenly punish a mutant for something they'd done 13 or 14 years before?
Perhaps she'd only just found out.
But how? And who could have told her? Only Ian Sanderson and Flora's mother knew the secret. He had left the island, and she would never have risked breaking up her marriage.
Not after 13 years, certainly. Then the answer must have been Flora herself.
Exactly. And when Flora suddenly started developing into a controller...
It must have given our Molly one hell of a shock.
To put it mildly. And what's more, Molly would have known instantly how it had happened.
Yeah.
What do you know about Flora's assumed father, Angus Keary?
Well, he wasn't a mutant, but his father was.
Ah. Oh, where does Sanderson say that?
He doesn't.
Huh?
I marked all the passages in Hugh's notebook that refer to Flora. Here, look, see?
Good. Then what about Flora's mother?
Well, just a minute. Let's see. No, both her parents were mutants. And so were Sanderson's. He told us that himself.
All right, so we have a working hypothesis. A controller is born out of the union of two mutants, and the parents of both of them must be mutants too.
Oh, we may have to go back even further than that, John. We can't be sure.
I know, but it's enough to be getting on with, surely.
Okay.
There are half a dozen names on this list who have two mutant parents.
And a lot of their grandparents will be dead by now, so we can't check them out.
Exactly. So any one of these could be a controller.
John, supposing none of them were controllers.
Oh, come on, Curtis. There must be two whole generations here. There has to be at least one controller. If not, where else do we find him?
That's the big question, John. And the answer gives me a feeling like hairy-legged spiders crawling over my scalp.
In this country, we call that dandruff.
You know, for a so-called upright Englishman, you spend an awful lot of your time burbling on your backside.
Well, I have a poorly arm, and I had to enjoy this delicious breakfast which you prepared for me with such loving care.
Well, you finished it now, so
Yes.
You've absolutely no excuse for staying in bed any longer. Come on now, get up.
All right.
And let's go over to Sanderson's place. It's important, John. Come on.
Can I offer you something? Tea? Coffee?
Not for me, thank you. I've had breakfast in bed.
Well, what is it that brings you here in such a hurry?
We want some information from you.
About this educational trust.
Oh, aye.
Yeah, where was it administered?
On Lewig, of course, Curtis, by the fellowship.
No. That's where the beneficiaries are, where the scholarships are awarded. We want to know where the money is. It can't just be suspended in space. I mean, someone has to be responsible for it, for its investment, for collecting and distributing the interest. If we could find out who does that...
We'll be getting much closer to the truth.
Aye, well, it's administered here in London by a small merchant bank. I should know because I'm a member of its board of directors.
You are? Well, what are we waiting for?
Well, if it'll help, I'll make an appointment for you to meet the bank's chairman.
Well, fine. Well, on our way, we might as well drop in at the Home Office and leave that list of names with Colonel Gulliver.
Oh, by the by.
Yeah?
If you'd care to come and look out of the window. Look, down there. See that man in a dark jacket and pinstripe trousers?
What about him?
Well, he's been there for 2.5 hours. I just thought it rather strange.
It might be one of Gulliver's men.
On the other hand, it might not. Anyway, if he follows us to the bank, I think we'd be justified in asking him for his account number.
If you wouldn't mind waiting in here for a few moments, gentlemen. Sir Graham McCladden has someone with him at the moment, but he ought to be free directly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, I hate having this floor-to-ceiling glass all round.
So do I. Makes me feel like a goldfish in a bowl.
Or a germ under a microscope.
Oh, really, Curtis, you have an uncanny knack of lowering the tone of any conversation.
Well, it can often be quite beneficial to get back to basics.
Oh, dear. You're obviously about to expound another of your extraordinary theories.
Oh, wily Uncle Cornelius.
Get on with it, then.
You know, it just dawned on me that we've been looking at this education trust as something which has developed quite naturally out of the situation on Louis.
I thought we were all agreed on that.
What, from one tiny island? A few hundred simple, hard-working, God-fearing crofters organizing this fellowship, this education trust? Oh, it's all too much, John. It's far too much.
But what's the alternative?
That Louis may have started as an accident of nature, but it has been deliberately built up, exploited, for the sole purpose of producing mutants who can be groomed for high office, like Ian here, or Brigadier Sherman.
And half the names on Ian's list, I shouldn't be surprised.
Right.
You mean it's been set up like a sort of mutant breeder unit?
More like a stud farm.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yes, especially when you think of Molly Kyle and the Reverend Donald Schoolhour as the farmers.
Farm managers, more likely. Now, if you're right, then the real villains, the masterminds of this business, are hiding behind the facade of this merchant bank.
All this plate glass opulence around us.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Sir Graham is free to see you now. If you'd kindly care to step this way.
Oh, just a minute. Who was that who just came out?
That was Sir Graham's last appointment, sir. The Reverend Donald Schooler. There he is now, sir, just going towards the main door. Do you know him by any chance?
Oh, yes. We know him all right.
And the man he's talking to now.
Oh, do you, sir? That's Sir Graham's chauffeur.
But he's the man who's been waiting outside my flat for 2.5 hours.
And sure as hell he wasn't waiting for a bus.
That was part 5 of Aliens in the Mind, co-starring Vincent Price as Curtis Lark and Peter Cushing as John Cornelius, with Fraser Carr as Ian Sanderson, William Edel, Gulliver, James Thomason, Home Office official, and Andrew Sear as Manson. Aliens in the Mind was written by René Basilico from an idea by Robert Holmes. Production by John Dias. Aliens in the Mind. Co-starring Vincent Price as Curtis Lark and Peter Cushing as John Cornelius. When Flora Curie is murdered, Lark and Cornelius decide to tell her father, the MP Ian Sanderson, that he is himself a mutant, able to be manipulated by the unidentified controller, the same person who ordered his daughter's death. Shocked and horrified, Sanderson agrees to help them trace the organization back to its source. Their search finally leads them to an educational trust, with headquarters at a merchant bank in the city.
We've been looking at this education trust as something which has developed quite naturally out of the situation on Louis.
I thought we were all agreed on that.
What, from one tiny island? A few hundred simple, hard-working, God-fearing crofters organizing this fellowship, this education trust?
But what's the alternative?
That Louis may have started as an accident of nature, but it has been deliberately built up, exploited, for the sole purpose of producing mutants who can be groomed for high office, like Ian here, or Brigadier Sherman.
And half the names on Ian's list, I shouldn't be surprised.
Right.
You mean it's been set up like a sort of mutant breeder unit?
More like a stud farm.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yes, especially when you think of Molly Kyle and the Reverend Donald Schoolhour as the farmers.
Farm managers, more likely. Now, if you're right, then the real villains, the masterminds of this business, are hiding behind the facade of this merchant bank.
All this plate glass opulence around us.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Sir Graham is free to see you now.
Just a minute. Who was that who just came out?
That was Sir Graham's last appointment, sir. The Reverend Donald Schooler. There he is now, sir, just going towards the main door. Do you know him by any chance?
Oh, yes. We know him all right.
And the man he's talking to now.
Oh, do you, sir? That's Sir Graham's chauffeur.
But he's the man who's been waiting outside my flat for 2.5 hours.
And sure as hell he wasn't waiting for a bus.
Part 6. Final Tribulations.
Come in, if you please, gentlemen. Sir Graham will see you now.
Thank you.
Come in, Ian. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you,
You seem to
Graham.
have been away for ages.
Aye. Graham, may I introduce John Cornelius, the eminent brain surgeon,
Mr. Cornelius.
It's good of you to see us, Sir Graham.
and Professor Curtis Lark.
Professor.
Hello, sir. Nice office you have here, Sir Graham. Must be a good working environment.
Perfect. But then luxury always is.
Yes.
Won't you sit down, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, what brings two such unlikely visitors through the hallowed portals of a merchant bank?
Money. What else, Sir Graham?
Well, at least you've come to the right man.
We sincerely hope so.
Well, tell me all about it. What's your problem?
We've just returned from the Isle of Louis.
Do you know the Isle of Louis, Sir Graham?
Well, of course I do. I was born there.
What a coincidence.
What? Oh, you mean because of Ian? Not really.
Were you also educated on the island, Sir Graham?
To start with, of course, but then my family emigrated to Canada. Oh, but that was years and years ago.
Graham, was the Louis Educational Trust in existence in those days?
Of course not, Ian. That wasn't until just before the war, 1938 or 9.
Could you tell us who established the trust?
I did. It's always been very much my own private...
Benefaction?
Yes, something like that.
Uh-huh.
In gratitude for all the favors received.
And in lively expectation of further favors to come.
That's a nice turn of phrase you have, Professor.
Well, it's not original, I'm afraid.
Indeed not. I believe it was first said of King John.
Oh, you know everything.
Sir Graham, do you know anything about the island sickness?
What island sickness?
On Louis, Graham.
Oh, that. Oh, that's nothing much.
Nothing much. Do you realize that the incidence of mental disorientation in the young is higher on this one tiny island with a population of a few hundred than it is in the rest of the United Kingdom? You call that nothing much, Sir Graham. It's the biggest nothing much I've ever heard of.
Put like that, Professor, I might agree it sounds horribly impressive. But as I understand it, this sickness is no more than a passing phase, like growing pains.
The point is, Graham, that whatever the sickness is, it didn't turn out to be a passing phase with my daughter.
I didn't even know you had a daughter.
No. I think I'd almost forgotten it myself. Until last week.
Why, what happened last week?
My daughter was murdered.
Murdered? My poor Ian. I had no idea. Oh, but this is awful. Terrible. I can't tell you how appalled I am.
Don't you want to know who did it?
Oh, yes. Yes, of course I do.
So do we.
It was two complete strangers.
Strangers to us, that is.
But why, Ian? In God's name, why?
We hoped you might hazard a guess, Sir Graham.
I don't know why you should think that.
Don't you?
Anyway, the point is that I'd like to make some sort of lasting memorial to her.
Of course you would.
What I had in mind was some sort of grant to allow proper research into the causes of this island sickness.
On Louis?
Where else?
It sounds a marvelous idea.
We thought you'd like it.
And I was wondering if you'd be prepared to let the trust sponsor it.
The trust?
Now, why not, Sir Graham? Isn't the aim of the trust to improve conditions for the islanders?
Well, yes. In a way, I suppose.
Well, believe me, this would improve their lot. A lot.
Oh, excuse me a moment. Yes, Charles?
Lady McCladden has arrived, Sir Graham.
Oh, ask her to wait just a few... No. On second thoughts, ask her to come straight up.
Very good, Sir Graham.
I hope you don't mind, gentlemen. I'm meant to be taking my wife to lunch.
Not at all.
Oh, it's ages since I saw her last.
Is your wife also a native of Louis, Sir Graham?
Oh, no. She was born in Canada, actually.
Oh.
That's where I first met her.
But she does take a great interest in affairs on the island.
Oh, yes, indeed. She wanted to know a great deal about this suggestion of yours.
Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I didn't mean to...
No, it's quite all right, dear. Come on in.
Well, if you're sure.
You know Ian, of course.
Of course. It's been so long, I'm in danger of forgetting what you look like, Ian.
Aye.
Now, let me introduce you to Mr. John Cornelius, the brain surgeon.
Mr. Cornelius?
How do you do, Lady
And
McLaren?
Professor Curtis Lark.
You're not Curtis Lark, the author, are you?
Well, I do write the odd book or two, ma'am, yes.
I've just read one of them.
Well, thank you. I'm gratified to find I'm not my only reader.
No, seriously. I find your predictions of the future use of telepathy and telekinesis quite fascinating.
Yes, it is a fascinating subject.
And not a little frightening. Oh, forgive me, I've obviously broken up something terribly important.
On the contrary, your arrival could be quite opportune.
Yes, sit down, my dear. Here.
We hope you might be able to persuade Sir Graham to support our scheme.
It's a modest medical research grant.
That seems a worthy enough cause. What do you intend to research?
Mental illness, Lady McLaren.
On a tiny Scottish island called Louis.
Louis? But there's no mental illness on Louis.
Oh, but there is, I assure you.
The so-called island sickness is almost approaching an epidemic.
They want the trust to sponsor the idea.
If they're serious, why not? It sounds a marvelous idea.
That's what your husband said.
Exactly what your husband said. Word for word.
Of course, we'd have to put it to the other trustees.
Oh, I thought it was a private trust.
Graham did say...
That he set up the trust? Oh, he did. As agent for the trustees.
Could we approach them?
Well, I don't see why not.
When?
When what?
Oh, when could we put it to them?
Tonight, if you like. Well, Graham and I are both trustees, and the chief executor is dining with us. 3 gives a quorum.
Well, then you'd better come to dinner. You can put your proposition en masse.
What, all 3 of us?
Why not? The more the merrier.
Well,
What a splendid idea. We'd love to come, wouldn't we?
Yes, I guess we would at that.
I'll make it 8 for 8:30 then. We'll send a car for you. Then you won't have to worry about driving home.
that is most awfully kind of you.
No,
Drink, Curtis?
thanks. I want to have that wide-awake feeling all evening.
You have a suspicious mind, dear boy. I don't expect it'll be anything but a perfectly ordinary dinner party.
Yes, except that we could find ourselves playing footsie with a controller.
You think it's McLaren, don't you?
Well, I don't know. But it's not a bad position for a controller to be in now, is it? I mean, head of a merchant bank, finger in every pie, pulling every string.
Sounds awfully messy.
It sounds terribly legitimate. What better front could a controller have?
You're right about that. Every snippet of information in the right hands could be worth $1 million.
Don't you have pounds over here anymore?
Oh, yes. But they're not the same as those we used to know and love. How does my bow tie look?
Terrible and tired. Why didn't you buy a clip-on like mine?
Oh, that's most uncivilized. Besides, I'd be terrified of it falling into the soup.
Well, it might improve the taste.
Now, who on earth's that?
Want me to get it?
No. I'll go. All right, I'm coming. Oh, Major Manson.
May I come in?
Yes, of course. Go straight through to the
Phew,
toilet.
the smell of camphor.
It's Major Manson.
Good evening, Professor.
Oh, good evening, Major. Will you join me in a drink?
Scotch.
Straight?
A little water, please.
Okay.
I thought you weren't going to drink tonight, Curtis.
Well, I changed my mind. This monkey suit of mine smells so much of mothballs it's making my eyes water.
You should give that jacket a good brush.
Does that get rid of the smell?
No, but it scares the hell out of the moths.
I say. Never mind us, Major.
Here you are, Major, and here's to you.
Cheers.
Why don't you take the weight off your feet and tell us the news?
Well, you've certainly stirred up a hornet's nest. Colonel Gulliver's with the Home Secretary now.
Well, I'm glad to see someone's taking us seriously.
He's taking the whole show very seriously indeed. Regards it as a full-scale attempt to subvert the government of this country.
But the question is, who by?
Perhaps we'll find out at dinner tonight. Excuse me.
Find out what?
Who's behind it all?
John Cornelius here.
Oh, it's Ian Sanderson here.
Oh, hello.
Hi. I've just seen Sir Graham's car pull up outside your door. But I think the chauffeur's coming to you first.